So when the first settlers came into this valley in 1860, it wasn't called Issaquah back then. They called it Issaquah. It was a Native American term that referred to the sound of a water bird. Now, when the locals first got in here, they didn't use that term. They anglicized it a bit and called it Squak Valley. We had Squak Valley, we had Squak Mountain, we had Squak Lake. Squak Lake's now called Lake Sammamish. Squak Valley's now called Issaquah. Haven't gotten around to renaming Squak Mountain yet. But soon after the first settlers got here, around 1862, they found coal in the mountains around Issaquah. And they picked it up and said, you know, if we could get this into Seattle, we could make some money. So what they did is they would take it down to the shore of Lake Sammamish, and they'd put it on barges, about 5 tons at a time, and they'd take it through the various waterways, pulling the barge all the way. It took about 2 weeks to get it into Seattle, where it was sold primarily to steamships and some other things like gas. You know where Gasworks Park is today. That converted coal into gas for lights. They used it there, but it wasn't high-grade coal, wasn't very marketable back then. It is not at all marketable today. We still do have a lot of coal here, but you know, it's bituminous coal, not anthracite, and there's basically no market value to it. So, go up to about 1885, people have been pulling the coal through the various waterways into Seattle for a while. Their arms are getting tired, so 2 guys say, why don't we build a railroad to get the coal out of Issaquah and into Seattle? So in 1885, the Seattle Lakeshore and Eastern Railroad was formed, and they started laying tracks, and it went north out of Seattle through the U District, out around the north end of the lakes, down through Woodinville, and all the way down into here, into Issaquah. And the tracks got here in 1887. Coal started going out. The next year we started getting passengers out. We put a depot in the year after that, and everything's booming. Issaquah's a boom town, and in 1892 they decided to name the town Gilman after one of the 2 founders of the railroad. The other one was Burke. Today you might know the Burke-Gilman Trail, which is the original roadbed for the Seattle Lakeshore and Eastern Railroad. So, in addition to coal, a lot of lumber was taken out of here, particularly for the Great Fire of Seattle in 1889. That was a boom for Issaquah. And passenger traffic also left Issaquah starting around 1888 and lasting till 1921, 1922. It sort of tapered off at the end. And the thing that really killed the passenger traffic was cars. The first car came into Issaquah in 1911. It was sold at what's now the Issaquah Brew House. And flash forward a few more years, 1925, they paved Front Street. They put in concrete sidewalks after tearing up the wooden ones. And at that point, passenger service was no longer needed. The coal lasted a few more years. Its heyday kind of ended after World War I, lumber, World War II, and both of those petered out. So today, the only cargo that was taken out in any sort of major way from the olden days is butter. We passed Dairygold, 1909, that was called the Northwest Milk Condensing Company, and they made canned milk. It was later called the Issaquah Creamery, and then it was called Alpine Dairy. There was some other names in there. There's a picture of the Alpine Dairy up on the wall there. And then in 1958, I believe we should fact check that, it was bought up by Dairygold and has been Dairygold ever since. Dairygold was the last shipper out of Issaquah on the railroad. In 1996, a trainload of butter was the very last cargo taken out of Issaquah. Today, Dairygold still makes butter about 40 million tons a year. And that's the entire history of Issaquah.